Hi, boys and girls, and welcome back to another edition of Snack Time with a Dollop of Read Aloud. Today, we're going to continue with Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone by J.K. Rowling, with permission granted by Scholastic Book Publishing for me to be able to share this book with you. So, this, boys and girls, is going to be our last chapter of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. So for some of you, this is the first Harry Potter book you've read, and I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I've enjoyed sharing it with you. Don't forget, there's 6 more, so if you really love this book, then maybe over the summer, dip your toe into more of the books. You have plenty of time to experience Hogwarts, okay? And if you think it might be too much for you to read, don't forget, you can also listen to it on Audibles, which I do all the time in my car. I've listened to them multiple times. I love their storytelling. And the man who does it, Jim Dale, is much better than Mrs. Willis at trying to make voices. But I try. Now, we're going to experience the last chapter. When we left Harry, he thought it could be Voldemort, thought it could be Snape behind the walls of fire. But when he stepped in to the room and through the black flames, someone else entirely was there. So I looked at some of your predictions. Some of you were pretty good at sleuthing out who it could possibly have been. So let's see if your prediction, your guess, was right. Chapter 17, The Man with Two Faces. Here we go. There's the book art. Who do you think that is? It was Quirrell. So for those of you who guessed Professor Quirrell, good job. You, Harry gasped. Quirrell smiled. His face wasn't twitching at all. Me, he said calmly. I wondered whether you would be meeting me here, Potter. But I thought, Snape. Severus, Quirrell laughed. But it wasn't his usual quivering tremble, however, or either. It was cold and it was sharp. Yes, Severus does seem the type, doesn't he? So useful to have him snooping around like an overgrown bat. Next to him, sorry, bug, little ant, hate them. Back to the book. Next to him, who would suspect poor stuttering Quirrell? Harry couldn't take it in. This couldn't be true. It couldn't be. But Snape tried to kill me. No. I tried to kill you. Your friend Miss Granger accidentally knocked me over as she rushed to set fire to Snape at the Quidditch match. She broke my eye contact with you. Another few seconds, and I would have shaken you off of that broom. I'd have managed it before then if Snape hadn't been muttering a counter curse to have saved you. Snape was trying to save me? Of course, he said coldly. Why do you think he wanted to referee your next match? He was trying to make sure I didn't do it again. Funny, really. He needn't bother. I couldn't do anything with Dumbledore watching. All of the other teachers thought Snape was trying to stop Gryffindor from winning. He did make himself unpopular, I must say, but that was a total waste of time. When, after all, I will just kill you tonight. Quirrell snapped his fingers and ropes sprang out of thin air and wrapped themselves tightly around Harry. You're too nosy to live, Potter. Scurrying around the school on Halloween like that, for all I knew, you had seen me coming to look at what was guarding the stone. You let the troll in? Certainly. I have a special gift with trolls. You must have seen what I did to the one in the chamber back there. Unfortunately, while everyone else was running about looking for it, Snape, who already suspected me, went straight to the 3rd floor to head me off. And not only did my troll fail to beat you to death, which I was very upset about, that 3-headed dog didn't even manage to bite Snape's leg off, which I was also upset about. Now wait quietly, Potter. I need to examine this interesting mirror. It was only then that Harry realized that they were standing in front of the mirror of Erised. This mirror, boy, is the key to finding the stone, Quirrell murmured, tapping his way around the frame. Trust Dumbledore to come up with something like this. But sadly, for you, he's in London. And I'll be far away before he gets back. All Harry could think of doing was keep Quirrell talking and to stop him from concentrating on the mirror. I saw you and Snape in the forest, he blurted out. Yes, said Quirrell idly, walking around the mirror to look at the back. He was on to me by that time, trying to find out how far I'd got. He suspected me all along. Tried to frighten me, as though he could when I had Lord Voldemort on my side. Quirrell came back out from behind the mirror and stared hungrily into it. I see the stone. I'm presenting it to my master, but where is it? Harry struggled against the ropes binding him, but they didn't give. He had to keep Quirrell from giving his whole attention to the mirror. But Snape always seemed to hate me so much. Oh, that's true, he does, said Quirrell casually. Heavens, yes. He was at Hogwarts with your father, didn't you know? They loathed each other. But he never wanted you dead. But I heard you a few days ago sobbing. I thought Snape was threatening you. For the first time, a spasm of fear flitted across Quirrell's face. Sometimes, he said, I find it hard to follow my master's instructions. He is a great wizard and I am weak. You mean he was there in the classroom with you? Harry gasped. He is with me wherever I go, said Quirrell quietly. I met him when I traveled around the world. A foolish young man I was then, full of ridiculous ideas about good and evil. Lord Voldemort showed me how I was wrong. There is no good. There is no evil. There is only power, and those too weak to see it and to seek it. Since then, I have served him faithfully, although I have let him down many times. He has had to be very hard on me. Quirrell shivered suddenly. He doesn't forgive easily. When I failed to steal the stone from Gringotts, he was most displeased. He punished me, decided he would have to keep a closer look on me. Quirrell's voice trailed away. Harry was remembering his trip to Diagon Alley. How could he have been so stupid? He had seen Quirrell there that very day, shaken hands with him in the leaky cauldron. Quirrell cursed under his breath. I don't understand. Is the stone inside this blasted mirror? Should I break it? Harry's mind was racing. What I want more than anything else in the world at that moment, he thought, is to find the stone before Quirrell does. So if I look in the mirror, I should see myself finding it, which means I'll see where it's hidden. But how can I look without Quirrell realizing what I'm up to? He tried to edge to the left to get in front of the glass without Quirrell noticing, but the ropes around his ankles were too tight. He tripped and he fell. Quirrell ignored him. He was still talking to himself. does this mirror do? How does it work? Help me, master. And to Harry's horror, a voice answered. The voice seemed to come from Quirrell himself. Use the boy. Use the boy. Quirrell rounded on Harry. Yes, Potter, come here. He clapped his hands once and the ropes binding Harry fell away. Harry got slowly to his feet. Come here, he repeated. Look in the mirror and tell me what you see. Harry walked towards him. I must lie, he thought repeatedly and desperately. I must look and lie about what I see. That's all. Quirrell moved behind him. Harry breathed in a funny breath that seemed to come from Quirrell's turban. He closed his eyes, stepped in front of the mirror, and opened them again. He saw his reflection, pale and scared looking at first, but a moment later the reflection smiled at him. It put its hand into its pocket and pulled out a red stone. It winked and put the stone back into its pocket, and as it did, Harry felt something heavy drop into his real pocket. Somehow, incredibly, he felt the Sorcerer's stone. Well, said Quirrell impatiently, what did you see? Harry screwed up his courage. I see myself shaking hands with Dumbledore, he invented. I've just won the House Cup for Gryffindor. Quirrell cursed again. Get out of the way, he said. As Harry moved aside, he felt the Sorcerer's stone against his leg. Dare he make a break for it? But he hadn't walked 5 paces before a high voice spoke through Quirrell, or though Quirrell wasn't moving his lips. He lies! He lies! Potter, come back here, Quirrell shouted. Tell me the truth. What did you see? The high voice spoke again. Let me speak to him, face to face. Master, you're not strong enough. I have strength enough for this. Harry felt as if devil snare was rooting him to the spot. He couldn't move a muscle. Petrified, he watched as Quirrell reached up and began to unwrap his turban. What was going on? The turban slowly fell away. Quirrell's head looked strangely small without it. Then he turned slowly on the spot. Harry would have screamed, but he couldn't make a sound. Where there should have been a back to Quirrell's head, there was a face. The most terrible face Harry had ever seen. Oh my gosh. It was chalk white with glaring red eyes and slits for nostrils. It resembled a snake more than a man. Harry Potter, it whispered. Harry tried to take a step backwards, but his legs wouldn't move. See what I have become? Mere shadow and vapor. I have form only when I share another's body. But there have always been those willing to let me into their hearts and minds. Unicorn blood has strengthened me these past weeks, and you saw faithful Quirrell drinking it in for me in the forest. And once I have this elixir of life, I will be able to create a body of my own. Now, why don't you give me that stone that is in your pocket? So he knew. The feeling suddenly surged back into Harry's legs. He stumbled backwards. Don't be a fool, boy, snarled the face. Better you save your own life and join me, or you'll meet the same end as your parents. They died begging me for mercy. Liar! Harry shouted suddenly. Quirrell was walking backwards at him, so that Voldemort could still see him. The evil face was now smiling. How touching, it hissed. I value bravery. Yes, boy, your parents were very brave. I killed your father first, and he put up a courageous fight. But your mother needn't have died. She was trying to protect you. Now, give me the stone unless you want your mother's sacrifice to be in vain. Never! Harry sprang toward him. Harry sprang towards the flame door, but Voldemort screamed, "Seize him!" And the next second, Harry felt Quirrell's hand close on his wrist. At once, a needle-sharp pain seared across Harry's scar. His head felt as though it was about to split in two. He yelled, struggling with all his might, and to his surprise, Quirrell let go of him. The pain in his head lessened. He looked around wildly to see where Quirrell had gone, and saw him hunched over in pain. Looking at his fingers, they were blistering before his eyes. "Seize him! Seize him!" shrieked Voldemort again, and Quirrell lunged, knocking Harry clean off his feet, landing on top of him, both hands around Harry's neck. Harry's scar was almost blinding him with pain, yet he could see Quirrell howling in agony. "Master, I cannot hold him. My hands! My hands!" And Quirrell, though pinning Harry to the ground with his knees, let go of his neck and stared, bewildered at his own palms. Harry could see that they looked burned, raw, red, and shiny. "Then kill him, fool! Kill him and be done!" shrieked Voldemort. Quirrell raised his hand to perform a deadly curse, but Harry's instinct reached up and grabbed Quirrell by the face. Ah! Quirrell rolled off of him, his face blistering too, and then Harry knew Quirrell couldn't touch his bare skin. Not without suffering terrible pain. Only now was his chance to keep hold of Quirrell, keep him in enough pain to stop him from doing a curse. Harry jumped to his feet, caught Quirrell by the arm, and hung on tight as he could. Quirrell screamed and tried to throw Harry off. The pain in Harry's head was building. He couldn't see. He could only hear Quirrell's terrible shrieks and Voldemort's yells. "Kill him! Kill him!" And other voices, maybe in Harry's head, crying, "Harry! Harry!" But he felt Quirrell's arms wrenched from his grasp. He knew all was lost. He fell into blackness, down, down, down. Something gold was glinting just above him. The snitch. He tried to catch it, but his arms were too heavy. He blinked. It wasn't the snitch at all. It was a pair of glasses. How strange. He blinked again. The smiling face of Albus Dumbledore swam into view above him. "Good afternoon, Harry," said Albus Dumbledore. Harry stared at him. Then he remembered. "Sir, the stone! It's Quirrell! He got the stone! Sir, quick!" "Calm yourself, dear boy. You are a little behind the times," said Dumbledore. "Quirrell does not have the stone." "Then who does, sir? Harry, please relax, or Madame Pomfrey will have me thrown out." Harry swallowed and looked around him. He realized he must be in the hospital wing. He was lying in a bed with white linen sheets, and next to him a table piled high with what looked like half a candy shop. "Tokens from your friends and admirers, dear boy. What happened down there in the dungeon between you and Professor Quirrell? It's a complete secret. So, as usual, the whole entire school knows. I believe your friends, Mr. Fred and George Weasley, were responsible for trying to send you a toilet seat. Now, no doubt they thought it would amuse you. Madame Pomfrey, however, felt it might not be very hygienic, so she confiscated it." "How How long have I been here? Harry asked. 3 days. Ronald Weasley and Miss Granger will be most relieved you've come around. They've been extremely worried. But, sir, the stone. I see you are not one to be distracted. Very well. The stone. Professor Quirrell did not manage to take it from you, Harry. I arrived in time to prevent that. Although you were doing very well on your own, I must say. You got there? You got Hermione's owl? We must have crossed midair. No sooner had I reached London than it became clear to me that the place I should have been was the one that I had just left. I arrived just in time to pull Quirrell off of you. It was you. I feared I might have been too late. You nearly were. I couldn't have kept him off the stone much longer. Not the stone, boy. You. The effort involved nearly killed you. For one terrible moment, I was afraid that it actually had. As for the stone, it has been destroyed. Destroyed? But your friend, Nicholas Flamel. Oh, you know about Nicholas, said Dumbledore, sounding quite delighted. You did do the thing properly, didn't you? Well, Nicholas and I have had a bit of a chat, and agreed it is all for the best. But that means he and his wife will die, won't they? They have enough elixir stored to set their affairs in order, and then, yes, they will die. Dumbledore smiled at the look of amazement on Harry's face. To one as young as you, I'm sure it seems incredible, but to Nicholas and Purnell, it really is like going to bed after a very, very long day. After all, to the well-organized mind, death is but a next great adventure. You know, the stone was really not such a wonderful thing. As much money and life as you could want, the two things most human beings would choose above all. The trouble is, humans do have a knack of choosing precisely those things that are worse for them, because in all a human wants is love and friendship. Harry lay there, lost for words. Dumbledore hummed a little and smiled at the ceiling. Sir, I've been thinking. Sir, even if the stone's gone, you know who, call him Voldemort. Harry, always use the proper name for things. Fear of a name increases fear of the thing itself. Yes, sir. Well, Voldemort's going to try other ways of coming back, isn't he? I mean, he hasn't really gone, has he? No, Harry, he has not. He is still out there somewhere, perhaps looking for another body to share. Not being truly alive, he cannot be killed. He left Quirrell to die. He shows just as little mercy to his followers as he does to his enemies. Nevertheless, Harry, while you may only have delayed his return to power, it will merely take someone else who is prepared to fight what seems a losing battle next time. And if he is delayed again and again, why, he may never return to power. Harry nodded, but stopped quickly because it made his head hurt. Then he said, Sir, there are other things I'd like to know, if you can tell me. Things I want to know the truth about. The truth? Dumbledore sighed. It is a beautiful and a terrible thing, and should therefore be treated with great caution. However, I shall answer your questions unless I have a very good reason not to. Which case, I beg you forgive me. I shall not, of course, lie to you, ever. Well, Voldemort said that he only killed my mother because she tried to stop him from killing me. But why would he want to kill me in the first place? Dumbledore sighed deeply. Alas, the first thing you ask me is one thing I cannot tell you. Not today, not now at least. You will know one day. Put it from your mind for now, Harry. When you are older, I know you hate to hear this, but when you are ready, my boy, you will know. And Harry knew it would be no good to argue. But why couldn't Quirrell touch me then? Ah, This I can answer. Your mother died to save you. If there is one thing Voldemort cannot understand, my boy, it is love. He didn't realize that love, as powerful as your mother's for you, leaves a mark. Not a scar, not a visible sign like the one on your head. To have been loved so deeply, even though the person who loved us is gone, will give us some protection forever. It is in your skin. Quirrell, full of hatred, greed, and ambition, sharing his soul with Voldemort, could not touch you for this reason. It was agony to touch a person marked by someone and something so good. Dumbledore now became very interested in a bird outside on the windowsill, which gave Harry time to dry his eyes on the sheet. When he had found his voice again, Harry said, "And the invisibility cloak? Do you know who sent it to me?" "Ah, your father happened to leave it in my possession, and I thought you might like it." Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. "Useful things. Your father used it many a time for sneaking off to the kitchens to steal food when he was here. And there's something else. Fire away." "Quirrell," said Snape. "Professor Snape, Harry." "Yes, him. Quirrell said he hates me because he hated my father. Is that true?" "Well, they did rather detest each other, not unlike yourself and Mr. Malfoy. And then your father did something Snape could never forgive." "What?" "Your father saved his life." "What?" "Yes," Dumbledore said dreamily. "Funny the way people's minds work, isn't it? Professor Snape couldn't bear being in your father's debt. I do believe he worked so hard to protect you this year because he felt that would make him and your father even. Then he could go back to hating your father's memory in peace." Harry tried to understand this, but it made his head pound, so he stopped. "And, sir, one more thing." "Just one?" "How did I get the stone out of the mirror?" "Ah, yes, I was waiting for you to ask. I'm glad you've asked me. It was one of my more brilliant ideas, and between you and me, that's saying something. You see, only one who just wanted to find the stone, find it but not use it, would be able to get it. Otherwise, they'd just see themselves making gold or drinking the elixir of life. My brain surprises even me sometimes. Now, enough questions. I suggest you make a start on some of these sweets. Ah, Bertie Bott's, every flavored beans. I was unfortunate enough in my youth to have come across a vomit-flavored one. And since then, I'm afraid I've rather lost my liking for them. But I think I'll be safe with a nice toffee, don't you?" He smiled and popped the golden brown bean into his mouth. Then he choked and said, "Ugh, alas, earwax." Madame Pomfrey, the nurse, was a nice woman, but very strict. "Just 5 more minutes," Harry pleaded. "Absolutely not." "You let Professor Dumbledore in." "Well, of course. He's the headmaster. That's quite different. You need a rest." "I am resting. Look, lying down and everything. Oh, go on, Madame Pomfrey." "Oh, very well. 5 minutes only." And she let Ron and Hermione in. "Harry!" Hermione looked ready to fling her arms around him again, but Harry was glad she held herself back because his head was still sore. "Oh, Harry, we were sure we were going to—" Dumbledore was so worried. "The whole school's talking about it," said Ron. "What really happened?" It was one of those rare occasions when the true story was even more strange and more exciting than the wild rumors. Harry told them everything. Quirrell, the mirror, the stone, Voldemort. Ron and Hermione were a very good audience. They gasped in all the right places, and when Harry told them what was under Quirrell's turban, Hermione screamed out loud. "So the stone's gone?" said Ron finally. "Flamel, he's just going to die?" "That's what I said, and Dumbledore thinks that's what it is. To the well-organized mind, death is not but a great is the next great adventure. I always thought he was off his rocker, said Ron, looking quite impressed at how crazy his hero was. So what happened to you two? Said Harry. Well, I got back all right, said Hermione. I brought Ron around, and that took a while, and we were dashing up to the Allery to contact Dumbledore when we met him in the entrance hall. He already knew. He just said, we just said, Harry's gone after him, and he hurtled down to the 3rd floor. Do you think he meant for you to do all that? Said Ron, sending you your father's cloak and everything? Well, Hermione exploded, if he did, I mean to say, that's terrible. You could have been killed. No, it isn't. He's a funny man, Dumbledore, Harry said thoughtfully. I think he sort of wanted to give me a chance. I think he knows more or less everything that goes on here. You know, I reckon he had a pretty good idea we were going to try, and instead of stopping us, he just taught us everything to help. I don't think it was an accident he let me find out or find that mirror or find out how it worked. It's almost like he thought I had the right to face Voldemort if I could. Yeah, Dumbledore's off his rocker all right, Ron said proudly. Listen, you've got to be up for the end of the year feast tomorrow. The points are all in, and Slytherin won, of course. You missed the last Quidditch match. We were steamrolled by Ravenclaw without you, but the food will be good at least. At that moment, Madame Pomfrey bustled over. You've nearly had 15 minutes. Now, out, she said firmly. After a good night's sleep, Harry felt nearly back to normal. I want to go to the feast, he told Madame Pomfrey, and he straightened his many candy boxes. I can't I? Professor Dumbledore says you're allowed to go, she said sniffly, as though in her opinion, Professor Dumbledore didn't realize how risky feasts could be. And you have another visitor. Oh, good, said Harry. Who is it? Hagrid sidled through the door as he spoke. As usual, when he was indoors, Hagrid looked too big to be allowed. He sat down next to Harry, took one look at him, and burst into tears. It's all my ruddy fault, he sobbed, his face in his hands. I told the evil Git how to get past Fluffy. I told him. It was the only thing he didn't know, and I told him. You could have died, all for a dragon's egg. I'll never drink again. I should be chucked out and made to live as a muggle. Hagrid, said Harry, shocked to see Hagrid shaking with grief and remorse. Great tears leaked down his face into his beard. Hagrid, he'd have found out somehow. This is Voldemort we're talking about. He'd have found out even if you hadn't told him. You could have died, sobbed Hagrid. And don't say that name. Voldemort, Harry bellowed, and Hagrid was so shocked he stopped crying. I've met him, and I'm calling him by name. Please cheer up, Hagrid. We saved the stone. It's gone. He can't use it. Have a chocolate frog. I've got loads. Hagrid wiped his nose on the back of his hand and said, That reminds me. I've got you a present. It's not a stoat sandwich, is it? Harry asked anxiously. Or a rock cake? Hagrid gave a weak chuckle. Nah, Dumbledore gave me the day off yesterday to fix it. Of course, he should have sacked me instead. Anyway, you got this. It seemed to be a handsome, leather-covered book. Harry opened it curiously. It was full of wizard photographs, smiling and waving at him from every page, were his mother and his father. Sent owls to all your parents' old school friends. Ask him for photos. No, you didn't have any. Do you like it? Harry couldn't speak, but Hagrid understood. Harry made his way down to the end of the year feast alone that night. He had been held up by Madame Pomfrey fussing about, insisting on giving him one last checkup. So the great hall was already full. It was decked out in Slytherin colors of green and silver to celebrate Slytherin's winning the House Cup for the 7th year in a row. A huge banner showing the Slytherin serpent covered the wall behind the high table. When Harry walked in there, there was a sudden rush, and then everyone started talking loudly once more. He slipped into a seat between Ron and Hermione at Gryffindor table and tried to ignore the fact that people were standing up and looking at him. Fortunately, Dumbledore arrived moments later. The babble died away. "Another year gone," Dumbledore said cheerfully, "and I must trouble you with an old man's wheezing waffle before we sink our teeth into our delicious feast. What a year it has been! Hopefully, your heads are all a little fuller than they were. You have the whole summer ahead of you to get them nice and empty before your next year starts. Now, as I understand it, the house cup here needs awarding, and the points stand as thus. In fourth place, Gryffindor, with 312 points. In third, Hufflepuff, with 352. Ravenclaw has 426, and Slytherin, 472. A storm of cheering and stamping broke out from the Slytherin table. Harry could see Draco Malfoy banging his goblet again. It was a sickening sight. Yes, yes, well done, Slytherin. However, recent events must be taken into account. The room went very still. Slytherin's smiles began to fade. Ahem, said Dumbledore. I have a few last-minute points to dish out. Let me see. Yes. First, to Mr. Ronald Weasley. Ron went purple in the face. He looked like a radish with a bad sunburn. For the best played game of chess Hogwarts has seen in many years, I award Gryffindor 50 points. Gryffindor cheers nearly raised the bewitched ceiling. The stars overhead seemed to quiver. Percy could be heard yelling or telling the other prefects, "My brother, you know, my youngest brother, got past McGonagall's giant chess set." At last there was silence again. Second, to Miss Hermione Granger, for use of cool logic in the face of fire. I award Gryffindor House 50 points. Hermione buried her face in her arms. Harry strongly suggested she had burst into tears, or suspected she had burst into tears. Gryffindor up and down the table were beside themselves. They were 100 points up. Third, to Mr. Harry Potter, said Dumbledore. The room went very quiet. For pure nerve and outstanding courage, I award Gryffindor House 60 points. The din was deafening. Those who could add up while yelling themselves hoarse knew that Gryffindor now had 472 points, exactly the same as Slytherin. They had tied for House Cup. If only Dumbledore had given Harry just one more point. Dumbledore raised his hand. The room gradually fell silent. There are all kinds of courage, said Dumbledore, smiling. It takes a great deal of bravery to stand up to your enemies, but just as much to stand up to your friends. I therefore award 10 points to Mr. Neville Longbottom. Someone standing outside the great hall might as well have thought some sort of explosion had taken place. So loud was the noise that erupted from Gryffindor table. Harry, Ron, and Hermione stood up and yelled and cheered as Neville, white as with shock, disappeared under a pile of people hugging him. He had never won so much as a point for Gryffindor before. Harry, still cheering, nudged Ron in the ribs and pointed at Malfoy, who couldn't have looked more stunned and horrified if he had just had the body bind curse put on him. Which means, Dumbledore called over the storm of applause, for even Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff were celebrating the downfall of Slytherin, we need a change of decoration. He clapped his hands. In an instant, the green hangings became scarlet and the silver became gold. The huge Slytherin serpent vanished, and towering Gryffindor lion took its place. Snape, shaking Professor McGonagall's hand with a horrified yet forced smile. He caught Harry's eyes, and Harry knew at once that Snape's feelings toward him hadn't changed one bit. This didn't worry Harry. It seemed as though life would be back to normal next year. or as normal as it ever was at Hogwarts. It was the best evening of Harry's life. Better than winning at Quidditch or Christmas or knocking out mountain trolls. He would never, ever forget tonight. Harry had almost forgotten that the exam results were still to come, but they did come. To their great surprise, both he and Ron passed with good marks. Hermione, of course, had the best grades of all the first years. Even Neville scraped through, his good herbology mark making up for his abysmal potions one. They had hoped that Goyle, who was almost as stupid as he was mean, might be thrown out, but he had passed. It was a shame, but as Ron said, you couldn't have everything in life. And suddenly their wardrobes were empty, their trunks were packed. Neville's toad was found lurking in the corner of the toilets. Notes were handed out to all students, warning them not to use magic over the holidays. I always hope they'll forget to give us these, Fred Weasley said sadly. Hagrid was there to take them down to the forest or to the fleet of boats that sailed across the lake. They were boarding the Hogwarts Express, talking and laughing as the countryside became greener and tidier, eating Bertie Bott's every flavored bean as they sped past Muggle towns, pulling off their wizard robes and putting on their jackets and coats, pulling into platform 9 3/4 at King's Cross Station. It took quite a while for them all to get off the platform. A wizened old guard was up by the ticket barrier, letting them go through the gate in 2s and 3s so they didn't attract too much attention by all bursting out of the solid wall at once and alarming the Muggles. You must come and stay this summer, said Ron. Both of you. I'll send you an owl. Thanks, said Harry. I'll need something to look forward to. People jostled them as they moved forward through the gateway, or towards the gateway back to the Muggle world. Some of them said, Bye, Harry. See you, Potter. Still famous, said Ron, grinning at him. Not where I'm going, I promise you that. He, Ron, and Hermione passed through the gate together. There he is, Mom! There he is, look! It was Ginny Weasley, Ron's younger sister, but she wasn't pointing at Ron. Harry Potter! Look, Mom, I can see him! Be quiet, Ginny. It is quite rude to point. Mrs. Weasley smiled down at them. Busy year, loves? She said. Very, said Harry. Thanks for the fudge and the sweater, Mrs. Weasley. Oh, it was nothing, dear. Ready, are you? It was Uncle Vernon, still purple-faced, still mustached, still looking furious at the nerve of Harry, carrying an owl in a cage, in a station full of ordinary people. Behind him stood Aunt Petunia and Dudley, looking terrified at the very sight of Harry. Oh, you must be Harry's family, said Mrs. Weasley. In a manner of speaking, said Uncle Vernon. Hurry up, boy. We haven't got all day. Harry hung back for a last word with Ron and Hermione. See you over the summer, then. Hope you have a good holiday, said Hermione, looking uncertainly after Uncle Vernon, shocked that anyone could be so truly unpleasant. Oh, I will, said Harry, and they were surprised at the grin that was spreading over his face. They don't know we're not allowed to use magic at home. I'm going to have a lot of fun with Dudley this year. Right, boys and girls, that was it. That's the end of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. I hope you truly enjoyed it. I look forward to seeing you today at Class Share, and maybe in the comment section below, tell me what you thought about the book. Give it a rating. How many stars out of 5 would you give it? And tell me why you liked it or didn't like it. All right, I'll see you at Class Share. I hope you enjoyed this book. I miss you. I love you. I hope you stay safe. Bye, guys.